Okay, this is a testimony meeting, an informal meeting, and it's everyone who has a testimony of healing is welcome to share their experience. And this is a very important part. This is the most important thing of our meeting tonight here, the sharing of testimonies of healing. It's something that Mrs. Eddy obviously felt was so important that she specifically had a meeting every week for this purpose only. Before we get into them, I'd like to read the article from the church manual entitled Testimonials. Glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's, St. Paul. Testimony in regard to the healing of the sick is highly important. More than a mere rehearsal of blessings, it scales the pinnacle of praise and illustrates the demonstration of Christ who healeth all thy diseases. This testimony, however, shall not include a description of symptoms or of suffering, though the generic name of the disease may be indicated. One more reminder for those that share testimonies tonight, please keep your remarks within 4 minutes so that everyone will have an opportunity to share their offering. For those on the teleconference, make sure there's no noise where you are, otherwise we're going to hear it. And then when you're ready to give your testimony, press *1. Listen for the acknowledgement message that your hand is raised. And when we're ready here, we will call on you. And now I'd like to open the meeting for testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Thank you. I am most grateful for Christian Science. Yesterday, I decided to make a placard using the sentence Mrs. Eddy used to describe smoking. A friend is very much in need of this information. And I opened up the computer, and over half of the church documents were missing. And I had to, and I'd already erased all the old files from my backup. I did not get upset, for I knew there had to be an answer. It was time for me to read the fruitage from the textbook, so I forgot the computer and went and started reading that. I read for several pages, and just as I was finishing up, an angel thought came to me to check for another stick drive. That I did, and there was the old backup with all the files on it. And I was ever so grateful for this. Christian Science does help us in every sort of a way if we just rely and don't get ourselves in the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the readings. I'm very grateful to God for leading me here and for his faithful workers for making this opportunity possible. It was truly the watches and prayers for church that only can explain the circumstances that led me here, especially since I was avoiding anything to do with church at that time. I am grateful for the character transformations that are beginning to take place from the classes and practitioner support and the church members' example. I am learning to see my fellow man as God sees them, and I'm learning to love more unselfishly, and I'm gaining a deeper love for the Bible. On the last round table, the discussion came up about intellectualizing God, and I could really relate to that. And I also wanted to express my gratitude for the blessings I have received by reading Mrs. Florence Roberts' book, From His View, I Am Free Now, for helping me break this horrible habit of intellectually thinking about God. Her story of her journey has full of powerful, heartfelt healings and insights, and have really helped me break this hold on my thought so that I can feel God more and understand Him. And I'm just so grateful for everything that's going on in the church that is part of this process, and I'm glad to be part of it too. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Anita from Oregon, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to express gratitude for our outstanding full-text lesson sermons. When I read this week's golden text, "The earth is full of the goodness of the Lord," I couldn't help but stop and ponder this beautiful statement of all the wonders of the world and the many ways I have been blessed. They are beyond number. The entire lesson is full of passages that can be used in a watch for the world and for our government. They remind me of how grateful I am to be living in a country where, as in Psalms, it says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord," and our nation was founded on the Word of God. I remember a statement from Science and Health also. There is no power that can withstand divine love. I am so grateful for this independent Christian Science Church and the beautiful, meaningful lesson sermons we are privileged to be getting. They are just so wonderful. I thank everyone who works so diligently and prayerfully to compile these weekly lessons, and everyone else who work at getting them ready for distribution. I thank you all.
Thank you. Janet from Georgia, go ahead.
Hello. A few weeks ago, I spent the Thanksgiving holiday with my sister and her family. The Sunday evening before Thanksgiving, she received a call from her daughter asking her for some help in getting her 4-year-old on the school bus the next morning. It appeared that the 3-year-old, she said, had a urinary tract infection, and she was going to take her to the doctor. My sister, of course, went the next morning. That evening, I decided I needed to do some praying about that. While my sister was gone that morning, I also prayed again. When she came back, we started preparing breakfast for our husbands, and my niece called my sister and told her that the doctor said that he was going to have to catheterize her if she did not use the bathroom, and my niece was extremely upset. So she gave her until that afternoon to be able to do that on her own without having to bring her back. So my sister came to me and she said, would you please do some work? So I went to my room. She worked while she prepared breakfast for our husbands. And about an hour and a half later, my niece called jubilant. She said to my sister, "You two women are amazing. I need to know how you did that." And my sister told her very promptly that it was not us, that it was certainly God and God alone. And I was so grateful for that proof of God's presence and power again in my life. I just can't express it enough. I am so happy about that. And of course she was happy too. This dear little 3-year-old did not have to go through any type of procedure that would be uncomfortable for her. We were all so jubilant and grateful for God. And thank you all for the readings tonight. They were just beautiful. They were some of my favorite statements from Science and Health. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank the two readers. The reading tonight was really good. In fact, one of the stories from the Bible, I was actually reading it today too, so it was really good for me. A few years ago, when I first came here, soon after I came, it was around this time, maybe a little bit after this time, but it was in the middle of winter time. I was extremely under the weather and also afraid. It wasn't a surprise feeling because I just came from, part of the world that, such weather wasn't really something that we only see on TV or read on newspapers. So it's not something that I have actually experienced firsthand before. So it was my first time of being in such situation. So I became extremely under the cold situation. And mostly I was so afraid because I was thinking, is this what I'm going to be seeing here? And I called a practitioner here who happens to be our teacher at that time. And I spoke to her how I was feeling. And immediately she jumped on it and she told me, Benjamin, that God brought me here and that God will keep me here. And she made known to me that it was God's idea that brought me here. And also that the snow or the weather that I was talking about is also another God's idea. That one God's idea cannot harm another God's idea. She made that very clear to me, and she told me to hold on to it. Whenever I started feeling under the weather, that I should repeat to myself that one God's idea cannot harm another God's idea. And it was perfect for me, and I took it to heart. The fear that I was the fear just disappeared from me immediately as I hold on to the truth, and the cold also disappeared. I became perfectly fine, and to my greatest surprise, I found myself having good time with the weather and the snow and everything. And it's been a few years when that statement was given to me, and I still use it till today. Whenever the new weather comes in, I stick with the truth. It was God's idea. It comes from God. There's no doubt about it. It just comes from God. And the fear of it, that it's going to harm you or put you under some circumstance or situation, is just not true. I've never had that problem again. Never. And I've been perfectly fine, having good time with the snow. And also, the little guy that I live with, Max, is my dog. There was a time when I was concerned with him because he's very outdoor. He always want to go out. But I use the same truth on him because he's God's idea too. Since he loved outside, I never restrict him from going outside. And he's been outside and he comes in when he wants. He never had problem with that either. So it's been a few years, like I said, and many seasons has come and gone, including last year, which was very extreme too. And then it came and gone and nothing happened. And we are looking forward to another one this year to have good time with it. I'm so grateful that God brought me here and all the teaching that have come along with it and all the blessings that God has given to me and the opportunity to be able to express Him. I cannot thank Him enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you. During this season at year's end, I want especially to express my continued and deep gratitude for all the help I have and am receiving at Plainfield. From my practitioner, who is so generously available, and all those there who do so much to keep this movement going, and for all our members joining hands and voices around the world. Last week, I had a slight recurrence of a problem my practitioner has helped me with before, falling down. I had a fall from my desk chair, which has roller wheels, and slid out from under me. And though I fell straight down on a wood floor, I seemed to be cradled rather than just a straight hit. However, when I got up, I found I had lower back pain. But though tempted to go lie down, however, with God's help, I decided to go right ahead with my day, knowing God is all, and claiming this throughout my day, as I have learned to do here. By the next day, there was absolutely no pain at all, and I realized that I have indeed been making continuous progress, thanks to belonging to Plainfield, which I truly cherish. Thank you and blessings.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight I'd like to give gratitude for how often in a day so many opportunities come to the door of our thinking for us to prove that principle never stops working and that it can be called on at any time for any claim. Recently, while traveling on a bus, a young couple with a baby boy sitting about 2 rows in front of me, not too long after we started the journey, the baby started crying, and the crying went into screams. I mean, really, they didn't know what was wrong. At first, I just said something to myself. I don't remember exactly what, but then the crying grew intense. And then the thought came that I can do something about this. So that I started to know in my own thinking that this is not right, that God's idea cannot be disturbed, and I kept clear in my own thinking that this is not what is real. There is no disturbance, not where God is, and He is everywhere. I knew that principle works all the time, and that all are in His presence right then, right at that time. And I don't remember what else I declared to myself, but shortly the baby stopped crying. And it was quiet for some time, and probably another hour or so it started to cry again. And the thought was, oh, well, you couldn't do anything, could you? But then I just immediately came back with that, no, it is not me who heals anything. I never have healed anything. It is the Christ power, which is right here, right now, and everywhere else. So I started to declare again, affirming the truth so strongly in my own thinking, that the inseparability of God and His ideas is right now taking place. It didn't take too long, and He was quiet, and the bus was very quiet and peaceful for the rest of the journey. I am so grateful that these concepts we learn from science can be proved every day in our life, and that if we make these knowings our own, we can bless the world and bless ourselves too. I am grateful for everything I have learned through Christian Science, through this church, and all the things, the incredible, invaluable resources available on our website. Thank you so much for the readings. They were very, very inspiring. And thanks for tonight's service.
Thank you. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Tonight, I wanted to express my gratitude, first of all, for the readings and everything. Everything is just so beautiful. Especially tonight, I wanted to say how tremendously grateful I am for the beautiful watches that we have, all 3 at the Plainfield Church. I started attending and doing the watches even while I was away last summer. And at that time, I often found it so difficult to focus. And, well, I was just all over the place, and the concentration was difficult. But as time has gone on, I began to use a little notebook and gradually wrote the watches down. And then things changed, and I saw an enjoyment and a new awareness level actually rise. My notebook is almost full now, and I know that my spiritual sense, my understanding of God and Mrs. Eddy have been greatly strengthened. I love pondering and praying about the truths in the watches and sharing them with the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Good evening. I'd always been plagued with frustration over a legal matter I am involved with, which made it difficult for me to speak well on my behalf during the hearings. Most of the time, I would not say anything at all and sit there upset. Most of the frustration was with myself for being so afraid to speak. Today, I went to a hearing, and when asked to speak, I stood up and spoke with confidence everything that needed to be said in order to clarify all the misunderstandings. As a result, after a year of difficulty and losses, I finally won a portion of the case. So grateful to God for His grace and strength and for protecting me in the snowstorm, which I had to drive 2 hours in today to get to my hearing. I'm grateful to my practitioner, whose continuous help has enabled me to turn my focus to God and express Him, and for working with me to weed through all the fears that were keeping me from speaking and applying this Christ truth. I'm so deeply grateful for everything I've been given that has changed my life for the better. Thank you very much, and thank you for the readings.
Thank you. The Moores from Georgia, go ahead.
Thanks, this is Lenny. I was thinking how in Science and Health, Mrs. Eddy says that error is a coward before truth. And I used to kind of chuckle at that before because I was like, well, it sure doesn't seem too afraid of me and anything I seem to say or think in that direction. And I could never quite figure out why. Error was always kind of coming at me rather than running away. And when I came to this church, working with the practitioners here, they spoke of being a terror to error. And for a while, I just found that so hard to do. I just felt like, error would come and just kick me to the curb every time. And I remember a turning point after, working with a practitioner here for some time. Turning point came where one night I had just had enough, and I felt just kind of an attack of bad thoughts, sad thoughts, everything that kind of comes at you as your thoughts saying, oh, you feel terrible, there's nothing you can do, this stinks, blah, 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 just like this barrage of negativity. And I remember finally growing some spiritual spine and just saying no. And, well, I said a few other choice things that I can't say on a testimonial meeting, but all of a sudden I just stood up and I mentally rebelled against it. And I said, no, this is not what God made. This is not what God intends for me. This is not right. I don't have to accept it. I don't deserve it. It was very liberating. I just kind of went on a rant. And sure enough, the thoughts and those feelings, it left. And that was that first time where I finally felt like, I had turned around and kicked error's butt. And it was so liberating and so wonderful. It's just one of the many things that I am grateful for that I've learned here in this church, working with the practitioners here. It's just learning how to stand up, be a terror to error, grow some spiritual spine, and not accept the thoughts that present themselves to me, whether they're thoughts of depression or sickness or, you name it. But instead, claim my dominion, as the textbook tells us. So I'm very grateful for what I'm learning here in independent Christian Science. I'm grateful for the practitioners, and very grateful for all my fellow members and all the testimonies from tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those readings. They were very inspiring. And prayer. We started out with the first hymn on prayer. Thank the readers. I learned something about prayer this last week. I give gratitude to God and to a practitioner here that helped me. But I learned to pray while understanding that the problem was truly a lie, not just asking God for help, which sometimes I have done. It seemed like I pulled a muscle, and I asked the practitioner after the service for support. I hardly would ever ask on a Sunday. And I got it, and I worked with the best what I could find, and I knew I was being supported, and things were getting better. But at nighttime, all of a sudden, it was a crescendo, and I couldn't get to sleep. Well, there's more people in this church than me, and other people have needs and all too. And I started, and I've been told to pray for other people too. And as I prayed for other people, I felt better. And my body actually felt better. And I actually, as the days went on, I could sleep as I prayed for others that needed love and support. And I worked with the hymn I love so much, hymn 253. One part says, because it shows how God really loves us and cares, and he knows when we're in trouble. Low, sad, and sweet, whose measures bind the power of pain. And that meant God was low, sad, and sweet. And he cared, and he helped us in pain. Well, I sang that song, and as I sang it, I felt just total peace and no problem. And I went to sleep very, very well. And I said, thanks, God. Well, the next day, again in the evening, I crescendoed. I had been told that I can do all things, whatever's my duty to do, because that's my right by the practitioner. But this time when I sang that same song, it didn't work. And I said, God, I know you love me. Why don't you just free me from this problem here? And I kept, and it didn't work. So I said, well, there's a lesson in this. And I started praying more for other people. And again, I was freed. And I was able to sleep. And this went on. And I realized I was learning things as the days went on. I was getting stronger, but I still had more to learn. And recently, as I tried to go to sleep, I got the thought, we're soul created. God created soul created forms. And I said, soul created, they can't be suffering, matter created forms, and I'm not that. They're what's suffering. So I said, this is just a lie. And I'm a soul created forms, and what do soul created forms? Well, they do soulful things. And they support good and things like the watches and the other activities. And that gave me strength, and I was able to feel even better. And I didn't care anymore that I was suffering at times. I said, it's going to pass when it's time, when I've learned everything I should learn. And I just went ahead. And one little bright spot, after service on Sunday, my son, who saw me limping during the day, after the service, it was so inspiring. I walked out free, without pain, and I raced him to the car, and I beat him. He's a 13-year-old. And he was just amazed that Dad, who was crippled for a while, was totally free. So God's in charge and takes care of everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for a lesson I learned several years ago. I was having some company, and I was opening my dining room table to put a leaf in it to extend it, and I pulled the muscle in my back. And it was very painful. So I called the practitioner, and the practitioner said, "This is an imposition. You are doing God's work. You're having people in your home, opening your heart, and this cannot stand." Well, God was on the scene, and I continued what I was doing and was healed. Well, just recently, I got a pain in my back, and it was the same thing. And I remembered this healing, and when I applied the truth, it ceased. I am just so grateful for the lessons I'm learning, for all the practitioner help, and to know that God is available all the time. He's with us all the time, and the truth is available for everyone, everywhere. I'm just so grateful for Mrs. Eddy, for practitioner help, and to be part of this church. And thank you for the readings.
Thank you.
I'm very grateful for the teachings that I've learned here and the practitioner support, because before coming here, when a problem came up, I would just run around doing my best to fix it, but it was just never felt like I could because I didn't have the tools to do it. And now, when something comes up, I realize it's not a problem, it's just an opportunity to sit and pray, figure out what God's plan is, and that's been just an excellent lesson for me. I've seen it work so many times now, and it's taught me to be even patient and all that too, so I'm grateful for that. But I just, with different things that come up, I've noticed the longer I'm here, the quicker I get to that point where I just sit and pray about it and try to see what I'm supposed to do. And I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to be in that spot. So, thank you.
Thank you. I had an experience this week that I'd like to give thanks for. We've heard that Mary Baker Eddy has said that ingratitude is the one unpardonable sin. And every once in a while I have an experience that shows me that I need to be a little bit more grateful and a little more consistently grateful. So I'm glad for those experiences. What happened was that there was something that I had to do, and I felt like I knew exactly what to do and how it was going to come out. Sure enough, it didn't work out that way, and then here I am struggling with frustration. Then it finally hit me. Are you grateful to God? So at that point in time, I sat down and I just started thanking God. Not asking Him for anything, just thanking Him. Thanking Him that He was everywhere. Thanking Him that He is almighty. Thanking Him that He knows everything. And even though I didn't want anything and didn't want to ask anything, I just started thanking Him. And I felt so happy. And when I finished that, then it was revealed to me exactly what I should have done with this job, and it worked out quickly and easily. So thank you, God, and keep reminding me that I need to be grateful all the time.
Tonight, I think I'll read a few things from our church website bulletin board. I haven't in a while. One from Texas. Thanks to everyone who contributed to the newsletter, and thanks to Jim for taking the initiative to reinstate it. Thanks to Luann for a beautiful, inspiring testimony. Thanks to Tony for his treatment. Lovely. Then Illinois. Thank you for the great Unity watches. I know we could always do our own watches individually, but for me it's a more disciplined approach and helps me keep on track by doing them together. Pennsylvania, thank you for the readings last night and every Wednesday. I re-listened to December 3rd again and wrote down what spiritual sense involves. I have also written many ideas from the wonderful testimonies. And Costa Rica, I love our readers. They are great. Wonderful service today, November 30th. A voice from heaven we have heard, yes. And then again from Texas, I just noticed that the daily duties are listed at the end of every lesson in December. What a great idea. Thanks, Plainfield. And New Jersey, at the start of a 4-hour drive today, I listened to the weekly lesson as read by Joseph from the UK. What a wonderful way to get my thought focused on God and to truly appreciate the blessings he has given me all day long. Thank you so much to the lesson writer and to Joseph. And then this is a letter from Kansas. Dear friends, enclosed is my donation check, a check ordering 2 calendars, and I'm happy you are doing the calendar for 2015. I love each day statement. I refer to it often during the day. And thank you for all you do. I enjoy going to church Sunday morning, and also the singing is wonderful too. I'm getting used to the new Liberator. It has been a big help. I have copied some pages so I can refer to them daily. Blessings to all. And then a letter from Virginia. Dear fellow members, my heart is filled with gratitude for great love found in this independent church. 2 Sundays ago, during the round table, a practitioner expressed love for each and every one there. My eyes were filled with tears as I feel the same way. What a privilege to work with those who strive to put God first in everything and truly love their fellow man. With love to all. I was thinking today the ways in which this church is so different, and especially when I first came here, one of the ways that it was very different was that I was actually asked to do things, and I never had before, and I guess I was kind of a timid nature, so I didn't initiate it myself. But I remember one of the very first things I was asked to do, I was working with the practitioner at that time. There was someone in the congregation who wasn't feeling well, and I was told to go to her home and to bring some readings and some homemade soup and sit with her and read from Science and Health and express love to her. And it was such a wonderful thing to do. And in all my years in science, I had never done anything like that before. Usually if someone was not feeling well, maybe you didn't even know about it. And I did that for many days until she was feeling better. And then I was asked to come to church and to help clean. There was a crew here cleaning. And I would mop the floors and clean the bathrooms. And it was such fun to be with everybody and to do this work. And then to go out and rake leaves, because in those days we did all the work ourselves. No one was hired to do it. And it was such great joy to be together. And then we began to do watches, and I learned how to do that and to sit and to pray for the world. And that was so wonderful to do that. And I was given proofing to do. Then I was asked, and this was one of the most hardest things, if I'd been having healings, I needed to get up and testify. And with knees shaking, I started to do that. And this too was so liberating, was so wonderful to put love into action. And I guess that's my point, is putting love into action. I had read about it and thought about it and knew how important love is, but I hadn't really been putting it into action. And in this church I started to, and this was even before it had become independent. But it has made such an impression on me, and I'm so grateful that now we have that standard, and we have others here and elsewhere who put love into action. And it is one of the most wonderful things we can do, because in that way we are expressing God's love. In miscellaneous writings in Mrs. Eddy's article on love, she writes, "Love cannot be a mere abstraction or goodness without activity and power. As a human quality, the glorious significance of affection is more than words. It is the tender, unselfish deed done in secret, the silent, ceaseless prayer, the self-forgetful heart that overflows, the veiled form stealing on an errand of mercy out of a side door, the little feet tripping along the sidewalk, the gentle hand opening the door that turns toward want and woe, sickness and sorrow, and thus lighting the dark places of the earth."
Thank you.